Water emanating from a crevice under the earth, taking a pathway to the surface. That is what a spring is. Given all the limestone that is around here, this is a karst spring. If you look very closely, you can see the clarity of the water. Despite the fact that this water is somewhat shallow. There are a few things to consider why the clarity of this water. There is a reason why this water has such high clarity. There are a lot of rocks and not a lot of fine sediments around. With a low amount of fine sediments, this means the water is going to have a very low turbidity. There aren't going to be any suspended sediments in the water. Here is another spring. You can see down to the bottom. And this spring leads to a stream. This is known as a spring creek. There is a video about spring creeks in the description box. Go check out that video. There are more sediments here, but there's a lot of rocks here too. What constitutes as fine sediments is this. It's sediments where they are about less than 1/4 of the width of a human hair. That is what constitutes fine sediments. Hardly any fine sediments in this water, so it's quite clear. You're not having a whole bunch of sediments suspended in water. Plenty of rocks, though. With no suspended sediments in the water, this means the water is going to be very clear. There are other factors to consider as well. The water coming up from underground, because it's been underground, the water has somewhat of a chill to it. It's going to be colder than water that would normally be found already on the surface. The water is going to have a more constant temperature because it's coming from underground. But it's also not going to be very warm either. Because of that, the growth of algae is going to be much slower. Algae affects the clarity of the water. With a low amount of algae growth in the water, this means the water is going to have a high clarity. Also consider that with the water coming from underground, there's going to be some filtering taking place as it's going through rock. And what happens is that sediments are being filtered out of there. And because of the sediments being filtered, the spring water coming out of this particular stream has a high clarity. Look how clear it is. There are cases where spring water can be discolored, such as if it comes in contact with tannic acid. Leaves decaying in the water becomes discolored. But in the case of this particular spring, the water is quite clear. Something to consider about hydrology, karst topography. If you like this video, check out other videos on this channel, and as always, be sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.